Hi, and welcome to the show. Rate and review at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back on the show Cindy Tsai. She's an internal medicine physician, and today's Kevin MD article is titled, Don't Make This Mistake with Gratitude. Cindy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
Now, you've been on the show multiple times, but for those who haven't listened to our first few episodes together, just briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
Sure. So I am an internal medicine physician, and I had always wanted to be a doctor, worked super hard, did all the right things, going to all the top schools. And along the way, burnt out, got sick, which I talk about in my TEDx talk about how it was like to wake up one day, not being able to see, which was terrifying. And, it really prompted me to pause and slow down and to really think about what I really wanted in life. I think I had this idea and vision of success and what I wanted my life to be and look like. And I kind of was so focused on that I lost sight of, the present moment in a way. So, fast forward, did a lot of healing, explored a lot of modalities, got a lot more training. And so now really seeing that mindfulness and coaching are very, very powerful tools that really help you optimize your well-being. So I transitioned into entrepreneurship, and I focus now on life coaching and speaking to help others on their journeys.
So you mentioned you gave a TEDx talk back last fall. How was that experience?
It was great. Yeah, it was definitely a process, and it took work. I think when I first thought about giving a TEDx, it's such a big stage and great opportunity. And when I first started the process, I was like, yeah, of course it's work, but it's a different type of work because, I think as physicians, we give presentations and talks all the time, especially in our training, right? All the things. And so I was thinking it would be similar, like, okay, yeah, I can come up, like, write my script, give a talk, no big deal. But I think part of it was also recognizing that is not the same, right? Because it's about being a dynamic speaker. It's about not just the content, but your delivery and your presentation and weaving it into a story and how to be more engaging. So I think it was definitely a really great learning experience, and I'm really glad that I was able to do it.
Now, when you shared your story on a TEDx stage, what were some of the responses that you received, perhaps from some of the other clinicians who may be listening to this for the first time?
Yeah, I am really glad that a lot of clinicians have reached out to me and to share their own story and journeys. I think that there are a lot of physicians, clinicians who have been on this nonstop treadmill, right? Of like constantly going and doing, and then reaching a point of just breakdown sometimes, like whether it be some type of health issue, right? Serious big diagnosis to really prompt them to slow down. So definitely, I think there are people who have experienced similar things, and they're like, yeah, it's so true. Like we really needed that pause, to kind of actually pay attention, because I talk about how our body has its own intelligence, how it's always talking to us, but we never really pay attention, right? Until it's like really serious signs, like, like you can't move or whatever, or can't see in my case. And then there are also, I think, the other people who recognize the importance of taking an integrative and holistic approach to wellness, and seeing that a lot of times with Western medicine, that we have a tendency to just immediately go to the quick fix of like looking at for the pill, to kind of just like make the symptom go away. And for me, had an autoimmune condition, autoimmune uveitis, impacting my eyes that could have led to full blindness. And so, of course, I did all the immunosuppressant steroids to halt the inflammation. But I also wanted to look at the underlying root cause, right? Like, why was there so much inflammation? Like, what can we do about it, instead of just like putting a Band-Aid, doing that quick fix, and then, ignoring, shoving it under the rug. So I'm glad that it's been able to open our medical community to these other modalities and paths to wellness, right? Not saying that there's, only one way, but being open to different things that could be very helpful.
All right. Let's talk about your most recent Kevin MD article. It was published last December. It was titled, Don't Make This Mistake with Gratitude. Now, how did this article come together?
Sure. So I think in the personal development space, there's a lot of talk about this idea of gratitude and how it's really important. And I think it's great. There's a lot of science and studies coming out about, especially with like positive psychology, right? And how it is really important to have that sense of gratitude with benefits like, improved sleep, mood, right? Like decreased pain, all these things. And I think, I just wanted to bring awareness to this idea that gratitude is not just something you do and check off your list, right? Because I think so often we see something and we're like, okay, let me do it and check it off and we're done, moving on. And I think because I hear and see people, they're like, yeah, I said my gratitudes, wrote it down in my gratitude diary, all the things. And then the rest of the day, they're still like not very happy. They're like frustrated and annoyed and upset. And it's like, okay, let's pause and actually really understand how powerful gratitude actually can be, right? When you really understand the deeper meaning behind it.
So, give an example as it relates to a lot of the physicians that you talk to. You said that gratitude is very powerful, a lot of deeper meanings when it comes to gratitude. So, tell us more about that, especially to those clinicians who may be listening to this, how it relates to them.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest learnings with gratitude is that it's about embodiment and being in that state of gratitude. And I think it's really easy to be grateful when things are going well, right? It's like, oh, great, you finished your notes on time, right? It's like you saw your favorite patient, like all the good things. But it's another to still be in that state of gratitude when things aren't working out. For example, the patients who are always late or they're demanding, they have so many like questions, the doorknob questions, right? It's like the visit's over and then they ask you, they're like, oh, I've actually been having chest pain. It's like, and so I think it's about recognizing, hey, gratitude is actually a moment for you to be present. And it's not to say that life is supposed to be always positive, rainbows, daisies, right? Like that's not realistic and not at all what I'm saying, but it's understanding like, hey, this is a moment for me to actually understand like, okay, this patient is having like something is going on. It's an opportunity to support and to help. And how can I be grateful for this? Right? How is this helping me, to continue to be of service and to really connect with someone? And so I think it's, of course, a practice. And, in the moment when you're stressed out, running late, it's really hard, I know, right? But this is why I wanted to bring awareness to this idea and this topic, because I think a lot of times when we're stressed out, we just keep feeling more and more stressed out, right? And so we need a way to like snap out of that so that we can be more present and shift into a different mindset.
So take us into one of your coaching sessions. So let's say you're talking to a physician and you want to instill this genuine sense of gratitude, or you want to kind of advise them on how they can stay in the moment when it comes to gratitude. Tell us, what would you say to this physician? How would you coach them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to remember what gratitude feels like for you, right? So keeping it very simple and easy, thinking of like in the last 24 hours, what was something that made you really grateful? How did like it could be something as simple as had a really yummy breakfast, waking up, seeing my kids, dropping them off at school, beautiful, safe home, like whatever it is. But really, we need to first know what it feels like right? And then staying with that feeling and to really remind yourself of, okay, it is possible to be grateful, right? And then recognizing like, hey, what was I thinking in the moment that was making me feel grateful? And then taking that apart and then applying it to another situation where maybe it's a lot more challenging, and recognizing, hey, what was going on at that point in time? And how can we actually reconcile the thoughts in a sense, right? To be like, okay, what is it that is causing you to feel so stressed, right? What's that gap? And then really taking that apart. I think a lot of times it's because we have this expectation of what things should look like. And when there's a gap, it's very hard for us to accept it because we're so attached to how we want it to look. And then, so it's really just taking a pause and calling it out and being like, okay, first, is this realistic, right? Like what's actually going on? And really recommitting and choosing again of like, how would I rather feel? And so it's very intentional, and it's also a very supportive and neutral practice, right? It's about really taking that, all the negative emotions, connotations out of it and becoming this observer so that you can actually look at what's going on and move to a more supportive place.
Now, tell us a before and after case study where a physician perhaps took gratitude and, took that checklist approach, as you say, and then maybe after how this physician changed and how that moved the needle in his or her life. So give us a before and after case study.
Yeah. So a lot of clients, when we first start working together, they hear about gratitude and then they don't really practice it, right? Or they're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And I send them a gratitude journal and all the things. And so I invite them to create a morning routine, right? Like first thing in the morning, instead of immediately looking at your phone, all the emails, social media, pause, and then just quickly check in, like, hey, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for today? And really, really taking a moment to appreciate. And I also ask them to, as best as they can, look for different things every day. And this really trains the brain to look for what's working, right? Because I think initially, when you're just like always writing down the same things, like, okay, yeah, I'm grateful for my bed and, this and that, food, water, we become numb to it, right? And so we have to essentially be very intentional to shift out of that. And so a practice I like to share is to look for different things every day. And then I've seen that, just in weeks of doing this practice, like my clients are like, yeah, I feel so much more relaxed and calm, and really looking, I think especially when you start the day with that, it really sets the tone of your day to be like, oh, okay, there's so many things that are good, that are working. And you almost look through that filter as you go through your day. And so I think it really sets you up for success in that way.
We're talking to Cindy Tsai. She's an internal medicine physician. Her Kevin MD article is titled, Don't Make This Mistake with Gratitude. Cindy, what are some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
So as I mentioned, gratitude is not just about doing, writing it down and then forgetting about it the rest of the day. It's about checking in throughout the day as things come up, really being in that state of gratitude. A great way to come to this is really thinking about the things that you are grateful for and tapping into that and remembering that this is a skill. Okay, so it's about practice and thinking about, right, like as you go to the gym, if you want to build muscle, you're going to go consistently, you're going to do those reps, do the bicep curls, whatever it is. So same thing with gratitude, right? In the beginning, when you don't have a gratitude practice, it's going to feel really weird. You're going to like roll your eyes, whatever it is. And you're like, this isn't working. Okay. But it's consistency and it's practice and it's skill that anyone can develop. And the more you're able to really connect and
Hmm.
be in it throughout the day, the easier it will be. And I promise you're going to see so much more benefit.
Cindy, thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing your time and insight.
Thank you.